Hello, I am the creative and production pastor here at Victory International Christian Center. My name is Aloysius Ballard, and I am here with your next creative tip. So today we're going to be talking about audio mixing. I know this is a segment that not only our church for training, but many ministries across the globe could benefit from. Today I'm going to explain the basics of audio and how you can control it and how to solve a lot of the problems that most churches see on a weekly basis. If you look at it right now, we're working on an Allen and Heath GL 2400, but it's a standard analog. Analog means that there's no digital components to control anything, which means that there's circuits, knobs, physical elements that you have to use to control the signal involved with the sound. If you look here on the board here, we have what you have is your signal input, which can be an XLR cable, which is more used for like microphones or direct boxes, or you could have a 1/4 inch cable, which is more like an instrument cable from a bass guitar, guitar itself, lead guitar, or other various instruments. When you have your signal input, it comes directly into the board. And the first thing you have on any general analog board is your gain or line in sound. Now, the best way to describe this is if you can imagine hooking up water to your house, to a pipe. And the city provides you with water. But to go into your house, there's a main faucet or turn knob that pretty much regulates how much of that water enters your house. That would be like your gain signal. Now, gain, normally you want to keep it, if you were looking at a clock, at a 12 o'clock, you want to start about 12 o'clock, which is with the knob being straight up. That gives you a balanced signal where it's not too loud and it's not too low. Once you go past gain, the next thing you normally have on an analog board are your EQs, which are some boards just literally have 3 knobs. The higher up on the analog board, you may have more defining knobs. But the basics of EQ are your highs, mids, and lows. Your highs pretty much give the brilliance or the brightness to a sound. I guess a good example of it is if your pastor is talking and he sounds like this, that means you need to add more highs. Highs allow you to hear the detail of a sound. Your mids would be more like, I guess you would say, the balance between the two. If you need a little more punch, I guess you would say, in your sound, but it's, you know, it just sounds like it's just a little too thin, you might want to adjust your mids. Now, mids shouldn't have to be adjusted too much because they are normally just a filler. It's like the meat in the sandwich. You have your highs and your lows that keep everything together, but your meat is what gives it the satisfaction. The bottom of the EQ is what we call the lows. Now, lows are what gives a sound its presence. If I took all of the lows out of this, you wouldn't hear that fullness in my voice, and it would be very thin, almost as if you were talking to, let's say, a chipmunk or a kid. So if you are having, I guess you say, your choir or your singers, you would start with your lows about 12 o'clock as well. Now, if you move down, most boards have what they call auxiliaries channels. Now, auxiliary channels are, I guess if you would say in your house, after the main water would get into your house, you have the kitchen, you have your bathrooms, you have your washroom. Now, the breakouts of the water supply to all of those would be more like auxiliaries on an analog board. It allows you to take that same signal and pretty much divert it to different places. So like in our church, at our house of worship, we have the stage monitors. We also have headphones, as well as recording devices where we send the signal or the same signal to those devices. Now on each channel here, you can follow where you have auxiliary 1, 2, 3, and 4. But on these auxiliaries, these are not the main auxiliaries. These just determine how much of that channel or that vocal or that guitar goes to the overall master of that auxiliary. So if I'm sending the stage monitors, let's say they are on auxiliary 1, and the choir is using those monitors to reference sound, and they say, well, we need more keyboard. What I would do is come to auxiliary 1 on the keyboard channel and turn that knob up, let's say to give them till it's satisfactory to their needs on stage. Now pastor may get up and say the keyboards are too loud, or you know, I need to hear myself more. So instead of disrupting the sound that's in the house, I would give pastor more of his voice in auxiliary 1 by turning his sound up in that channel. These are things that are the responsibilities of your sound engineer at the front of house. So these are basic tutorials that you can use to strengthen your ministry and the effectiveness of your service. Now, here's the #1 problem in most churches. You hear that crazy squealing or feedback, and everybody's cringing. That normally means something is extremely too loud. The first step to fixing that is bringing your overall master sound down. That would be your master fader. Your master fader controls everything leaving the soundboard. So you want to start there and reduce those channels back. Now you can start by bringing that down and then finding the channel that is really high. So by looking across your board, you can find the ones that have really high gains past 12 o'clock, and you can dial those back and then start mixing and adding volume back till it becomes satisfactory. But a lot of churches I've gone in over my experience, when I first see their boards, every gain is almost turned completely up, and they wonder why they have feedback issues. That's the #1 thing. Sound in a building travels, just like my voice here. If it bounces around and it's being re-amplified, the constant re-amplification of that is what turns it into noise or feedback. So you want to control that by reducing the volume so that it's not being picked up as much. The last but not least, I want you to reference your ear. Now, you could have all the best sound equipment in the world, but none of that matters if you do not learn how to use your ears. Sometimes you can go into a place in a service, and the main thing you hear is say, man, those drums are loud, or man, that one singer is really loud. If you can recognize that, that means it's your job to reduce that volume so that everything is balanced, where you can hear it and it almost sounds as if you're listening to a CD. You want that kind of quality, and you can have that. It just takes a little time. Be familiar with your board. Learn the basics of EQ, which I just gave you. Highs put more detail and brilliance or brightness in a sound. Mids is that meat or that little more presence that you need. The lows give you that very white bottom, or that fullness that you can, like in a kick drum, you can feel that boom. That's what lows bring. So if you find that a sound is too thin, maybe give it a little low and allow it to kind of have that bottom presence or that feeling. And always kind of know your church. Every church is different. Some churches are totally okay with the very loud spectrum, where what we consider concert level, and that's everybody just going for the gusto and going for what they want. But a lot of churches like to try to keep it in the medium, where it's almost like a very balanced, moderate sound, especially if there's live instrumentation. So be sure to gauge your audience. If you see people grabbing their ears or touching their ears or doing things of that nature, then you want to bring the sound down. So always be sure to monitor what's going on in your church, and always make sure that you're referencing your pastor or your leader, because normally they'll give you a look if the sound isn't right. And I'm glad you tuned in today, and if we could give you any more help or assistance, feel free to contact us or email us. You can always contact us at viconline.com, and we would love to help you and fix your church or your sound or any creative measures that you have in any form, shape, or fashion that we can. I'm Lo. This has been your tutorial today, and I will talk to you later.